Hello, everyone. Rachel Carman here today on Let's Talk Homeschool. And Davis is not with us today because today I get to interview a new friend who's written a wonderful book, The Joy of Slow. Please meet Leslie Martina. Martino?
Hello. Martino, yes.
Martino, would you tell us a little bit about yourself? You and I are just getting to know each other. I was
Sure.
drawn by your book title. I love your book title. The cover's great. But tell us a little bit about yourself as we get started.
Sure. Yes. So I'm Leslie Martino. I live in Central Florida, actually, with my husband and four children. And I have been homeschooling those four children since the very start. That's probably the only
Wow.
educational setting that they know. My daughter is now almost done
Oh, wow.
with yeah, yeah. And so it's been a wonderful, joyful
Hmm.
ride. I have been in education in some form for a really long time. I started out as a school teacher, and then an adjunct lecturer for graduate courses for
Mm.
teachers who are becoming teachers. And I just love talking about learning, and I love all
Mm.
things learning and the meaningful aspects of it. So that's a little bit about me
Oh,
and our
that's
family.
great. Thank
Yeah,
you. It's such an honor to meet you. I love that we have a community of encouragers in the homeschool community that
I
are
do
really
too.
passionate. Yeah, it's always a pleasure to meet someone else, someone new. I don't believe in
Hmm.
scarcity, right? I believe that there is plenty for
Mm,
all of us. And
mm.
it's an honor to meet you today. So thanks for joining us.
Yes,
So
thank you.
I just want to jump in. I love what you said when I asked you to tell us about yourself, and you have a real passion for learning,
Hmm.
which I do too. And I was a secondary ed major, so I taught high school history and English.
Mm,
So I love learning. I
nice.
love to see the light bulbs go off, and there's nothing
Hmm.
better than seeing the light bulbs go off in your own children, right? And that's what you get to do in homeschooling. So I want to
For
ask
sure.
if that's your passion. And then there's
Hmm.
this book. So can you draw a line for me between
Hmm.
this idea of the joy of slow and this
Hmm.
passion you've got for learning?
Yeah, sure. So that actually probably is partly how the book was birthed.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things that I was exploring in the world of education and have
Hmm.
always loved, and also how that meshed with what was happening in my home. And
Oh,
even
yeah.
just starting out, I would say also a combination of lots of mistakes that I
Mm.
made, knowing that when things weren't aligned the way that I had a vision for, or knowing when things were less joyful than I really wanted them to be. um, and trying to reconcile all of that together and figure out like what is the heart of that I really want to stand behind. What is
Mm.
the thing that's really carrying me through
Yeah.
besides God? um, but I really and for me it was boiling that down to the word slow
Mm.
and slowing down, and it was sort of like a light bulb that went off for me, because like if you're in you like education and you've been in the world of education or even just in the homeschooling space, everyone is always trying to gravitate toward a philosophy. Like, what's your educational philosophy or what's your method? And I was like, no, what I'm interested in is a little larger than that. It's like
Mm.
you can that's a comfort thing. That's how you choose to deliver, you know, uh, certain types of information or things like that. But what is the thing that makes this meaningful? How
Mm.
can we find the meaning? Okay,
Hmm.
we can't do any of it unless we slow down.
Mm.
And so then I started to really pick apart what that meant for family life, what that meant for learning.
Mm.
And it's more than educational philosophy.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love the idea that it's above a philosophy, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Hmm.
that is really super powerful. So
Yeah.
you're and I love the self-disclosure, all the mistakes you made because man, I think I need a new talk entitled Don't Do What I Did. Just
Yeah.
this long list of things. Let me save you some time.
Yeah. Right.
And I love that you were like, okay, we're something's off. We're not. it's not working, and yet I really want this to work. And
Mm-hmm.
it's all coming down to this issue of pace, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're just
Mm-hmm.
so what's the enemy of slow?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So uh, I want to just start out and say, when I ask people, when you ask homeschoolers, what are the things that you love about homeschooling? When someone asks you that, what are the things that you enjoy? What are the best parts of the experience? Everybody has really wonderful things to say and they get really excited and they start naming those things. But then you'll say, do you feel like you're experiencing those things on a regular basis? And then it's like,
Mm,
hmm,
yeah.
well, no. And that speaks directly to the enemy of slow.
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
and I think that some of the things that really make the idea of slow challenging is, well, one of the biggest is fear. I think
Yeah.
that, and then the control that develops out of that fear,
Mm-hmm.
but it's fear of failure, fear of messing
Yes.
our kids up, fear of our kids failing, fear
Yeah.
of being judged, fear of making
Mm-hmm.
a mistake, fear of being wrong. And I think that a lot of times that's driven by love, but it
Mm-hmm.
it, it
Yep.
ends up looking quite distorted,
Yes.
because it's fear, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and and that leads to all sorts of things. But I think also when we don't have a level of clarity on what our values actually even are,
Mm-hmm.
like if we know that we value this set of criteria
Mm-hmm.
or A, B, and C, and someone tells us, well, you should really be doing D, E, and F, it's not going to matter as much
Yeah.
because we're clear that we are supposed to have this at the
Mm-hmm.
forefront, this A, B,
Yeah.
and C thing, not the D,
Yeah.
E, F.
Yeah.
And I think that that is something that really impedes people from being able to really explore that idea of slow, is that they haven't taken the time to even figure out what are those values for our family.
Yeah.
Um, and I think another challenge might be a narrow definition of progress or a narrow
Mm-hmm.
definition of success. So, for example, if you're only gauging success by your child's ability to do things like retell information in the same way that it was received
Mm-hmm.
without necessarily understanding it or evaluating it, or
Right.
you're saying that success is the child's ability to produce work that passes
Mm-hmm.
some sort of standard, and a clear standard or an unclear standard, whatever, but without thinking about, without giving thought to intrinsic motivation or the child's
Mm-hmm.
ability to contribute to those standards, then you might not really embrace all that slow has to offer, because I really
Mm.
think inherently you are redefining success. You are being clear on your values. You are not letting fear drive the ship. Like, you have to be
Mm-hmm.
really intentional about those things
Mm-hmm.
to fight against everything that's coming against slow in our society.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think you're exactly right. And I mean,
Yeah.
it's you're talking about, getting a right definition of success
Mm-hmm.
and this issue of fear and even the intentionality. When I'm hearing you say that, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity to like
Mm-hmm.
drill down and consider. I'm a pen and paper kind of girl. I
Yes.
love to
Yes.
journal.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you're talking about things that if you to dare to take time to
Yes.
be introspective and to really think these things through
Mm-hmm.
would mean a slow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't it? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost to
Yes.
be slow, you have to start
You have to,
slow.
yes. It's so much of it is a mindset. It really
Mm-hmm.
is, because
Yeah.
you have to, look at your own life with a very
Mm-hmm.
high level of intentionality. And that requires a lot of reflection. That
Mm-hmm.
requires a lot of hard conversations with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before you even get to the children, it's like you have to deal with yourself.
It's so true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's very true. And not everybody's comfortable doing that. Not everybody is willing
Mm-hmm.
to do that. But when we do, even in a small way, it
Mm-hmm.
has a profound impact on us, on our families, on our children. It
Mm-hmm.
really does. And it's so worth it.
No, I totally agree. So Is this something you did once and you're done? You're good and done? Or is this something
Mm,
you perpetually do, maybe annually or maybe every 6 months? Talk about how, when I can imagine a lot of people see this and
mm-hmm,
I need that. I mean, intuitively, they're like, "Ugh, I need that. I'm exhausted. We're
mm-hmm,
all sort of short with each other. We're the joy is like, I don't know the last time I saw joy. I don't know the last time I
mm-hmm,
experienced joy. And they see this title and they hear this idea and they're like, give me some of that.
mm-hmm.
Where do they start? I mean, how would you frame? Because I
Mm,
mean, I'm not kidding. I see so much opportunity here, but I do
yeah,
feel like it has to start with like a pulling away, an intentional, to
yeah.
use your word, pulling
Mm-hmm,
away and some introspection and some self-assessment, some family
mm-hmm,
assessment, maybe per
yeah.
child. How do you do that, Leslie? Where do you start, right?
Yeah. Okay. So I feel like I need to back up a little bit. So um I think that it is really important to understand that this process is ongoing and it
Mm,
involves constant self reflection and change and evaluation. Like it's not just think about this one time and be done because we are always changing. Our
mm-hmm.
children are always changing.
Yes.
Our circumstances are always changing and their needs are always changing. We have to
Mm-hmm.
constantly evaluate this. And I think we run into problems when we begin or set out to homeschool and we think, got to figure out how to get this perfect from the
Yep.
start, go.
Yep.
That's we forget the joy, forget it, just
Mm-hmm.
forget it. It's going to
I
start to
agree.
unravel,
Yeah.
but if we can accept the fact that finding balance in the book, I actually talk about this as I always imagine balance, and I imagine that visual image of a balance scale
Mm-hmm.
where you hang things from the two
Mm-hmm.
different sides. It is a very imperfect process to balance
Yeah.
out one of those scales.
Mm-hmm.
And usually it's not until something becomes too heavy on one side or too weighty or too strained,
Mm-hmm.
too disappointing that you say, oh, I actually need to take some things off or put something on the other side to actually balance it. It's an
Mm-hmm.
unsteady process. And I feel like if we can accept the fact that it's supposed to be that way,
Yeah.
as long as you are staying aware, intentional, prayerful, you are the enjoyment of it all are
Mm-hmm.
the ups and the downs. There
Yeah.
is no perfection. We are in process. Our children are in
Mm-hmm.
process, and we have to allow ourselves to enjoy that process. And so
Mm-hmm.
when I think about slow schooling, it encompasses a few things. I
Mm-hmm.
would say the way we approach education and learning.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way we create the space that we create in the day for those healthy margins between
Mm-hmm.
activity, rest, passions, ordinary, mundane things, surprise, adventure. It's the balance we create between all of that. And
Mm-hmm.
also the connection that we are
Mm-hmm.
building with our loved ones, that we're doing this with. But um, I'll say a little bit more about the first, the way we approach education and learning, because I think it helps to think about, okay, well, where do I begin? How do
Mm-hmm.
I start to do this? So when I'm talking about approaching education and learning, I'm saying slowing down some of the things that are involved in that. It's about adopting a meaningful practice of building
Mm-hmm.
deep roots
Right.
rather than wide roots, right? Like depth
Mm-hmm.
over breadth. And we hear that sometimes, but we're like, it takes time to actually do that. We cannot rush through that.
Mm-hmm.
And so whether you're using curriculum or whether you're not using curriculum or whether you're letting learning unfold naturally, that's not the issue. It's whether you're taking time to value deep understanding over shallow mastery. And I'm not even saying with every topic and every single thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
It's not about doing everything, but certainly we
Right.
can be doing more, right? um, and because it's about having a healthy respect for that process of building knowledge. It takes
Mm-hmm.
time. It's not always, sometimes it is, but it's not just always saying, well, what's the right answer,
Yeah.
so you're interested in curating that type of learning environment that probably is going to be doing fewer things, but fewer
Mm.
things better.
Yeah.
Um, and you're honoring your interests, you're honoring your
Mhm.
child's interests, and respecting the time it takes to actually develop authentic skills. A lot of times we say we
Mhm.
want our kids to do X, Y, and Z or be able to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, do
Mhm.
you know how long it actually takes to do that? I always think of like a person learning a skill or a craft and working with an apprentice. And I'm like, do you know how many hours they're actually apprenticing with someone to actually
Mhm.
do this authentically on their own?
Yeah.
Um, and so it's about, I think I always say it's like you're doing meaningful work and you're learning to use the mind well, taking
Mhm.
the time to just be amazed by all that the world has to offer, whether that's stories,
Yeah.
of different people, places, good ideas, exploring things like that, tackling subjects with a level of dynamism and flexibility, and using elements that we don't often associate with education, like
Mm.
spontaneity and surprise, just to have fun, to linger a little longer with material and to not
Mhm.
rush through it. And like I said, it's redefining success, and I think
Mhm.
it helps parents find balance and avoid
Mhm.
burnout because it
Yeah.
is focused on preserving joy. We're
Mhm.
more likely to find joy when we're living a meaningful life or
Yeah.
when our lives are full of experiences that hold intrinsic value. And so, in the
Mhm.
end, slow is the effort to be more balanced. Balance helps us make better choices about,
Mhm.
for ourselves, for our families, that are both sensible and meaningful.
Mhm.
And, we have to align ourselves to what we find meaningful. And I think slow
Mhm.
schooling attempts to define those things and to
Mhm.
devote time to doing them well.
I mean, everything you're saying is just so beautiful. I love this idea. I tried to catch it down. I tried to write it down, so I'm sure you can go back
Hmm.
and quote it for me. But you were talking about developing meaningful relationships and not, what was
Mm,
the other half of that? Would you repeat that? Because that was worth
mm.
hearing again.
Sure. Okay. Let's see. What did I say?
Put you on the spot there. Sorry about
What
that.
about, was it about connection?
Yeah, you were talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah. Yeah.
there was a
Yeah.
contrast there that I just missed, but it sounded really wonderful.
Oh, goodness. Oh, goodness. Let me
No
think.
pressure.
Yeah.
You were
Meaningful
talking about
work.
meaningful practices, and we wanted to have meaningful, I
Mm.
think it was hearts or deep hearts and not shallow.
Oh,
Can you
yes. Yes.
circle
Yes.
back to that? Because
Yes.
I think it was really, really good.
Okay. So I was saying that whether you are using curriculum or whether you're
Mm-hmm.
letting learning unfold naturally, what you're
Mm-hmm.
interested in is valuing that deep understanding over shallow
Yes.
mastery.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is just so powerful. And as I'm listening to you, I'm like, I mean, it's so easy to get caught up in the rush of everything, to feel like
Yeah.
I've got to do more and I've got to do it yesterday. And
Mm-hmm.
what I have found in talking to homeschool mothers is 9 out of 10 surveyed, not scientifically, you
Mm.
understand, are burdened with this idea of behind,
Mm-hmm.
and I think
Mm-hmm.
if we could just get that behind off our shoulders, that would be awesome
Mm-hmm.
because
Yes.
I think we've all suffered with thinking we're behind, we're behind, we're behind,
Mm-hmm.
we're behind.
Yeah.
And I think having that mentality on our shoulders, unfortunately, it's contagious. And our kids get
Mm-hmm.
this idea that they're behind too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how do you approach this? I can imagine people, moms
Mm-hmm.
listening and going, man, that's exactly what I know we need to do. But how do
Mm-hmm.
I do what I know I need to do
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
not feel like I'm underwater because of this behind feeling and
Mm-hmm.
still get it done? I mean, I'm hearing a strong practice of discernment in all of
Mm-hmm.
this.
Oh my goodness, for sure, for sure. And not feeling guilty or second guessing yourself for the things that you do end up
Yeah.
eliminating.
Yeah.
You really just have to not let fear drive that ship.
Mm-hmm.
That is very hard to do,
Mm-hmm.
but it's very very necessary. I'll give you
Yeah.
some examples, like um, because sometimes people ask me, well, how do you do this and like actually teach subject matter, or like
Oh.
how do you
Mm-hmm.
actually incorporate these things and get some things done? And like I said, it's not about necessarily doing it all the time or doing it with
Mm-hmm.
everything, but think about those subjects that you can't imagine doing with any more enjoyment. or any more joy,
No.
or doing anything differently than how it's conventionally taught.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes you need to not be afraid. Again, there's that fear. Not be
Mm-hmm.
afraid to take the time to do things like actually plan for the pauses that you're going to take.
Yes.
Like the places in your curriculum where you're going to pause, not just keep going and
Mm-hmm.
process or reflect. Maybe you
Yeah.
journal together. Maybe you include art. Maybe you go visit somewhere related. But maybe, you go on a field trip, but where are you going to just pause and do
Mm-hmm.
more within
Yeah.
that? Maybe you pause from checking the unit boxes and you take a topic that you're studying and you explore it through questions. In the book, I
Mm.
talk about Socratic questions and
Mm-hmm.
common topics of dialectic that classical educationalists use. And it is a way, it's a help, it's a guide in how you can explore a topic through the asking of questions and
Mm-hmm.
critical thinking and even just inviting possibilities into your educational experience that you might not have before. My daughter
Mm-hmm.
was taking a traditional earth science course by her own request. She like absolutely loves the topic and she probably would have read the textbook for fun. And I was like, sure, go for it, but she was like, should I do these exams in the book? And at first I was like, sure, go ahead and do it. But then I stopped her after 3 or 4 exams because she had never actually done at the time, had never done a traditional course like this. And I had stopped her and I asked, do you find this useful to
Hmm.
do these exams? And she was like, useful? I don't know. I guess I figured you just need it for grades or whatever. And I was like, no, there are other ways that I can
Mm-hmm.
actually gauge what you're learning and be invited into what you're learning. What do
Mm-hmm.
you think some of those ways might be? And she was so invested in the topic that she was like, at the end of every chapter, can we do like a family? Can I like present to the family? Because this stuff is so interesting, guys. I mean, like I said, she was passionate about the topic
Mm-hmm.
already. So that became a much more useful and valuable way of her I mean, you couldn't call it an assessment tool, but that's not how we were using it. It was way more
Yeah.
valuable to her. So even inviting things like that, or maybe, depending on what you're studying, your child transfers something they know to a different format, like documenting an idea through a photography journal
Mm-hmm.
um, or creating a new version of something, like a 3D model to show how something works, or,
Mm-hmm.
you don't, even if the curriculum that you're using doesn't infuse that type of thing on its own, you
Mm-hmm.
can absolutely do that. Um, and even just like with things like math, sometimes okay,
Mm-hmm.
I know you just want to finish. I know you want to finish the math textbook by May or June, right? But instead of doing the 20 problems on the page for this topic, instead just take 1 or 2 problems and together with your kid just work on brainstorming solutions or what are the different
Mm-hmm.
possible ways we can
Yeah.
solve this problem, like, and enjoy it and like
Mm-hmm.
bring out
Yeah.
snacks
Yeah.
and call that math because like it's not always just and then not feel guilty that like the next day you got to go back and finish the 18 questions that you missed.
Right.
No, you don't. You don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
um,
exactly.
and then, like, or one of them that I actually am loving right now, especially with teenagers, is deep reading a challenging text together.
Yes.
And instead of just breezing through 5 texts that you
Mm-hmm.
could have on the topic, just one that you're
Yep.
actually reading together
Mm-hmm.
and you're modeling thought and reflection around what you're reading. That's going to be
Mm-hmm.
way more valuable. And
Mm-hmm.
those are skills that transfer when they leave your home and go on
Yep.
to do other things. You know what I mean? So I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes it's just like putting that fear, because you can't tell me that you don't think that your child is not growing from those types of
Mm-hmm.
experiences
Right.
or learning. We just get so afraid that if it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
look the way the powers that be tell us that it should look,
Mm-hmm.
that it's going to be less than,
Mm-hmm.
but there are I do talk about this in the book. There are things we can do to gauge how much
Mm-hmm.
progress is being made, but we do have to allow for more of a long range perspective.
Yeah.
We have to just be willing to, because it doesn't mean that we're negligent. It
No.
doesn't
Yeah.
mean that it's actually highly intentional. Do you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
I
It's not
do.
completely hands off, like, you're great because you're not doing anything.
No,
It's
no.
that's not it. It's
No,
not
and
what it
Leslie,
is.
really what you're talking about, when you first, it's possible that when you first hear this idea of slow, that
Mm-hmm.
it's possible that someone could say, oh man, that sounds really restrictive because I can only do
Mm,
so many low. But what you're
mm,
actually saying is
mm-hmm.
expansive. You're actually
Yes.
saying, blow down all of the parameters
Mm-hmm.
that have been arbitrarily set that
Yeah.
define success and progress and learning
Mm-hmm.
and dare to consider other methods, like not the whole
Yes.
20 problem set in your math lesson,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe not
Yeah.
even every experiment in your science book, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
whatever, but actually dare
Mm-hmm.
to consider new ways that are more appropriate to your homeschool and to
Mm-hmm.
your child, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I was
I mean,
gonna
that's
say,
so
y-
beautiful.
dare to look at the child in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
You can, chances are you can talk ad nauseum about the growth that you see in your child. Like
Mm-hmm.
most parents can, right? Like you say, think about the last 5 years. Tell me how your child has grown. And then for some reason, when it comes to schooly things, we're like, I don't know if they're making enough progress. Like
Mm-hmm.
if we're giving time to those things that we've actually equated with meaning, even as they are
Mm-hmm.
associated with learning, if we've given time to those things,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we're going to be able to see fruit from that.
Yeah.
And from time to time, go ahead and look and name it, and look at the facets of growth that go beyond just like skill-based abilities. Look at their
Mm-hmm.
ability to be kind. Look at their ability
Mm-hmm.
to organize themselves. Look at their ability, all the things that you've deemed are important to
Mm-hmm.
for human,
Yeah.
living. And look and see. It's probably so much more
Mm-hmm.
than you think. Like I said, I'll reiterate that again. We can't let those fears have so much power
Yeah.
over us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Truly, truly, yeah. I think that we fear. We make things important. The things that we give the most attention to, we end up making the most important things. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, we make the most important things the fear. All
Yeah.
we have to
Yeah.
do is shift our all we have to do is shift our attention, and what we're giving our attention to will grow.
I totally agree. And I think also you're giving your children a
Mm,
more you're completely reframing how they see themselves. So it's not
mm,
limited to a test outcome.
yeah, yeah,
It's
for
not
sure.
listed, it's not limited to a score or a grade or an
Mm-hmm.
assessment. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I am kind, I am generous, I know
Yeah.
how to navigate a relationship, I know how to
Mm-hmm.
settle a conflict, I know how to
Mm-hmm.
speak up for someone else. And those are
Mm-hmm.
so valuable. And the last time I checked, those aren't generally on assessments or
Mm-hmm.
exams. But you're
Exactly.
saying, I see you, and again, it's not restrictive, it's expansive.
Mm-hmm.
I see you
Yes.
not as just this measure. I see you as this. It's
Mm-hmm.
so much more than, what the world would say. I
Yes.
love that. So, Leslie, again,
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a liberating
Mm.
suggestion and challenge that you have floated in this book, which again
Mm.
has just got a beautiful cover and I love the title.
Thank
But
you.
um, we start doing this, we're really weird.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we need to do is we need to somewhere, you need to write a contract and we need to sign it and we all need to move to Central Florida because it seems like something that you need other people
Oh, yeah,
to
it
be
helps for
here with
sure.
you, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you
Mm-hmm.
need, and you mentioned before we came on camera that you've had the pleasure of speaking into some book clubs. I really think there could be a
Yes.
lot of power
Mm-hmm.
in moms getting together and studying this together and like
Mm-hmm.
interjecting this into their community or their co-op or their
Mm-hmm.
support group because
Mm-hmm.
otherwise, I mean, people could be, I mean, people could be really critical and
Mm-hmm.
tacky even if you do
Mm-hmm.
this actual slowdown. But I really think this is what God calls us to. I mean, there's scripture for this. I being a
Yes.
woman of the word, I don't see
Mm-hmm.
anywhere in here where it says rush, 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 rush. I
Mm-hmm.
don't see that. I see
Yeah.
slow down, slow down, slow down, slow down
Mm-hmm.
all
I
through
agree.
scripture. I can make that case.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I
And that's
agree.
what your book is talking about. So
Mm-hmm.
talk to me about how we do this in community. How do we
Mm-hmm.
introduce this? Because
Mm.
this is it, but we need friends that are on the same page.
Yeah. Rachel, I love that you mentioned that. I think that is so important. And we gain so much when we do these kinds of things in community, especially when we are a little more nervous or when we are not
Hmm.
sure or when we want to explore ideas with other
Yeah.
people, as they're exploring things in their own context and we're doing it in ours. So, one of the things that I've been so blessed to experience is people gathering in different places, book clubs,
Hmm.
where they are reading The Joy of Slow and they are gathering together for some conversation around it, and I have said to um, these different communities, and I've announced it through my email newsletter, or I might have said it on social media. I will pop in to those discussions. Like if you tell
What
me
a
when it's
treat.
happening,
That is
yeah,
awesome.
because I love it, and I
Hmm.
love to meet people who are thinking about these ideas, and I
Hmm.
invite the questions, and I just think it's really been very a life-giving experience, for me, yes, but for the to witness the
Hmm.
life-giving experience that it is for the people doing
Yeah.
it, I think it's really great. And so yeah, my encouragement is, um, you know pull some friends together to read the
Yeah.
book together. Contact me, email me, hello at
Yeah.
lesliemartino.com, and say, hey, can you pop into our book club? Or, I will
Yeah.
definitely try to make it happen because I think it's so important.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do
Yeah.
too. And I think this has been my mantra for years, and that is we need each other.
Yes.
We
Yes.
we really need each other. We need
Mm-hmm.
to remember that at the end of the day, we are all sons and daughters of the risen King who's coming
Mm-hmm.
back to take us home.
Yes.
And we really, really need each other to encourage, to challenge, to inspire. But what you're describing here, I'm going to bet means that sometimes in a community, somebody's going to ask me to do something, and I'm going to have to say that word we all hate to use, and that is no.
Right. Right. Yes.
And so part of this is learning how to say no and take a no.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say about
Yes.
that, Leslie? Because that's tough on both
Yeah.
sides, or can be.
It is tough, but we have to learn how to do it. And like I said, it goes
Mm-hmm.
back to the things that we value. You get to a
Mm-hmm.
point where you don't feel as bad about saying no because you
Yeah.
know that, like, I have a friend who was telling me that she just felt like God was really impressing upon her in this season with her family that they were way too busy. And
Mm.
she had to really pull back and, like, remove herself from lots of things that she
Mm-hmm.
was doing, which were all great things, her
Yeah.
involvement in the community. But she pulled back from those things and she felt bad about maybe like disappointing people, but
Mm-hmm.
she didn't feel bad with about the decision she was making or
Mm-hmm.
about because she was like, no, I'm serving a
Yeah.
higher purpose,
Yeah.
and I think we have to get to that point where we have to get clear. I think the problem is that we don't have
Mm-hmm.
that clarity all the time. We're
Yeah.
like trying things out. Let's try that out. I'll try that out. Should we be doing this? I don't know. Should we be doing this? I
Mm-hmm.
don't know.
Yeah.
We need to just like consult God
Mm-hmm.
in prayer, have that discernment, and really
Yep.
say, what is it that I need to give my time to in this season?
Mm-hmm.
There was a time as a mom where it was not my time to be going
Mm-hmm.
out and speaking at conferences, writing books.
Yeah.
I'm able to do that now, but it wasn't
Yeah.
always. You know what I
Right.
mean? There's a time
Right.
for everything, and
Yeah.
we have to know what we need to give our. We just need to be faithful to that. Give our
Exactly.
time to what we know we're supposed to in this right season.
And give that to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Give permission and kindness and grace and consideration to each other, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh yeah.
And
Oh
and
yeah.
when someone says no,
Yeah.
just, the most gracious interpretation is she
Hmm.
knows what's best for her and her family in this season.
Yeah, it's admirable. It
It
really,
is.
yeah.
It is. And
Hmm.
to thank them, I have found that to be very helpful when
Yeah.
there's someone that I really want to do something with or meet up
Hmm.
with or do a project with. And they're like, you know what? This is just not my day for that. Or this isn't my
Hmm.
season for that. Just to
Hmm.
say, I'm proud of you. That's great.
Yes.
That is great. I
Yes.
am
And it
so
probably took a
glad
level of courage,
it
but
did. And I'm
yeah,
so
yeah.
glad that you know what you need in this season. And
Hmm.
I think that's great. And
Yeah.
so I think just doing that for each other. And I think your book is going to open up opportunities for
Mm.
women to say no with more confidence. And
Mm.
I even believe for others to hear a no with more
Yeah.
kindness.
With more kindness, it
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that that
Mm.
is a beautiful thing.
Mm.
Oh,
I
Leslie,
like that.
this has been such an encouragement to me. I have a mentoring moms group myself, two actually, who meet
Mm.
here at my home, and I am looking forward to sharing this with them. I am never
Wow.
running out of book recommendations. So
I love it.
we run a little short on time because there's all 66 books of the Bible. So there's always
Right.
stuff, you know.
There's a lot.
There's always a lot, but I am just thrilled about this new book that you have and what the influence that I think it has on
Mm.
communities and on families. And I
Mm.
really I'm going to pray for that. I think that that is you've really added
Thank you.
something here, good food for thought. I really appreciate that.
I appreciate that, Rachel. Thank you so much. Really and
Where
truly.
can listeners find you? And are
Hmm.
there any conferences? I guess you're going to be at conferences this year. You're speaking all across the country. That's great news.
Yeah, well, yeah, we will see. I haven't uh um put out, all the conference season
Yep,
is
yep, yep, yep.
starting.
I
And I've
know.
I've been doing a lot of online appearances at
Okay.
things, but yes, the actual in-person conference season is starting. And so I don't have anything. I didn't put out anything yet where I've confirmed where I'll be,
Okay.
but
Okay.
you can find me at lesliemartino.com online.
Okay.
That is probably where I would post those events anyway. And
Yeah.
I'm active on Instagram at Leslie M. Martino. You have to stick an M in there.
Okay. Well, I'm
Yeah.
hoping that everyone will look you up and buy a book and dare to find joy in the slowdown and the downshift. I'll
Mm,
tell you
mm.
honestly, every time I downshift, I find what do I need to do? Downshift some more. It just seems like a
Yes.
continual process, but I really do
Yes.
appreciate your time today
Mm.
and the challenge. And girl, you've got a beautiful smile. Thank you for
Thank you so much,
contributing
Rachel.
to this
Thank you.
conversation and thank you
I
for
appreciate it.
coming
Thank you
today.
so much for having me. It was a lovely
It was a
conversation.
joy. It was. Thank you so
Mm.
much. And thank you everyone for tuning in today. Again, you can pick up her book wherever books are sold and make sure you check her out over there on her social media. Have a great day.